All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. It is Tuesday, and you know what that means. It is time to do the Tao now. Reading from Dr. Wayne W. Dyer's Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. And that's the real key here is you can change your thoughts and in turn change your life. And this is living the wisdom of the Tao, ladies in the Tao Ching. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies in the Tao Te Ching. But this wisdom, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already heard, comes to us from hundreds of translations of the Tao Te Ching, which was written by Lao-tzu over 25 centuries ago, 2,500 years ago, ladies and gentlemen, and is a well-respected text on the way to live life, or the way to have a much higher quality in life, ladies and gentlemen. So, today we take a look at the 58th verse of the Tao Te Ching, and Wayne Dyer titles his little essay here on this 58th verse of the Tao Te Ching and the subject that it covers, living untroubled by good or bad fortune, ladies and gentlemen. Couldn't we all use some of that in our lives? The ability to live our lives untroubled by good or bad fortune. It's like, and that's the real key of this. When you change your thoughts and change your life, it's not like, oh, my whole life just instantly changed. It's like the way that you experience the things in your life, you begin to have an ability to experience those same things differently. Now, this could be said many ways, but to put it the way I'm putting it now, it's not so much that the events and the things of your life change, which they will later through, law of attraction and all that kind of stuff, but it's not so much that the events of your life change as so much as the way that you experience those events changes, and it changes for the better, ladies and gentlemen, and that's what this is all about. So, the 58th verse of the Tao Te Ching. It begins by saying, when the ruler knows his own heart, the people are simple and pure. When he meddles with their lives, they become restless and disturbed. Bad fortune is what good fortune leans on. Good fortune is what bad fortune hides in. Who knows the ultimate end of this process? Is there no norm of right? Yet what is normal soon becomes abnormal. People's confusion is indeed long-standing. The master is content to serve as an example and not impose his will. He is pointed, but does not pierce. He straightens, but does not disrupt. He illuminates, but does not dazzle. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the 58th verse of the Tao Te Ching, and I find it fascinating. It's going back to this idea of leadership and a wise leader and how the influence of a wise leader or ruler or master or guru or whatever it be for you, boss, teacher, you know, um, parents, maybe even, and then the opposite of all those things, which we could be reciprocally, or which we could be vice versa, ladies and gentlemen. But he is pointed and does not pierce, straightens, but does not disrupt. These are interesting ideas. Let's dive right into what Wayne Dyer has to say, because he usually goes a different direction than I expect him to go, ladies and gentlemen. Living untroubled by good or bad fortune. Wayne begins by saying the world of the 10,000 things, which is what Lao-tzu refers to, I'm adding this bit, which is what Lao-tzu refers to as this physical material world that we find ourselves in, which is full of a billion different things that we add little labels and descriptions and attributes to, and this is better than that, and values and status, and all of these things that we make up that cause us to experience a disconnectedness rather than the oneness of the 10,000 things, quote unquote, as Lao-tzu describes it. And, the experience of oneness and the connectedness of it all. And the opposite of all the troubles that we create for ourselves through creating the world of the 10,000 things, or the world of separation. Now, back to what Wayne Dyer was saying here. The world of the 10,000 things is also called, quote, the world of the changing. You see it in your ever-altering life, even as you want everything to be stable and predictable. However, all things on our planet are in constant motion. As Albert Einstein once observed, nothing happens until something moves. This 58th verse of the Tao Te Ching stresses that there's another way to see the world. And that's what this whole teaching has been about, this whole series, ladies and gentlemen, is that there is another way to see life and our experience and things that happen to us, or that we say that happen to us, or the things that we see that happen to other people, or all of these things, ladies and gentlemen. There is a way to change your thoughts, change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. Now, this is so weird because it's hard to describe this process of the things in your life changing by you changing the way you look at it. Because most people, when you tell them that something changes, they think it becomes something else. And it's no longer that thing anymore, like it transforms, which could be a good way to describe this ability that we're creating. Some would call it magic, but I would just call it simple psychology. And so it's a very interesting process, though, ladies and gentlemen. Like, at first, nothing out here changes. It's just your perspective of it. Like, oh, another red light. The red light is still a red light, but you're not, erroneously or neurotically upset about the light being red anymore. You've like created a new perspective that you're like, oh, I'm okay with that. I don't have to be in such a hurry, even if I am going to be late. Maybe next time I should leave a little bit earlier, and it's all good. But so many of us go throughout our lives troubled by the simple things, like, oh, I can't. You fail to grab something simply, and you get frustrated that you couldn't simply grab it. And it's like, it's okay, like, try again. But anyways, I'm rambling, ladies and gentlemen. It's just so fascinating to me, this process of going from changing the way that you allow yourself to experience the same events, and then eventually how that creates a law of attraction or reciprocal effect to where the universe and life itself and you going in your direction and your life and your path begins to change then. And so then it's not so much of you just changing the way you feel about what you're already experiencing, but the directions that you begin to choose and the things that begin to show up for you in life begin to be of a much different quality. I would like to say greater quality, but it would depend the direction of your focus. And I think what so many of us experience is at the beginning, everything's neutral, and then eventually we become, let's get to a certain point in our adult lives, and we place negative labels on everything, and we start to get frustrated at the red stoplight, and then we create that cycle to where the universe and the direction we're going in our life by the thoughts we have and the decisions we make begins to have a negative snowball effect rather than the opposite, ladies and gentlemen. So, a worthwhile ramble. If you get value, please consider subscribing. We're continuing with what Wayne Dyer here is saying about the 58th verse of the Tao Te Ching and living untroubled by good or bad fortune, which is a really good statement to describe what I was just rambling about, is this process to change your thoughts and change your life. Because it's very interesting how it goes from just you doing it and then the environment or life begins to send it back to you in a different way. And I think these are stages throughout the process of the practice. Now, Wayne Dyer was saying that the Tao Te Ching stresses, after Albert Einstein observed that nothing happens until something moves, the Tao Te Ching stresses that there's another way to see the world, one that virtually guarantees that you will be untroubled by good or bad fortune, ladies and gentlemen. Instead of only noticing the constantly shifting energy pattern of the material world, this verse, the 58th verse, invites you to let yourself focus on the unchanging Tao. So what's he saying there? Like, let's jump back to the 58th verse. It says, when the ruler knows his own heart, the people are simple and pure. When he meddles with their lives, they become restless and disturbed. So this noticing, instead of only noticing the constant shifting energy patterns, which would be meddling, I think, with people's lives, is there no norm of right, the verse says, yet what is normal soon becomes abnormal. So things keep changing. People's confusion is indeed long-standing. Thus the matter is content to serve as an example. Thus the master is content to serve as an example and not to impose his will. So that's what the verse is saying. And Wayne is saying here, there is a way that you can begin to see the world in this new way that guarantees that we can be untroubled by good or bad fortune. So instead of only noticing or, trying to interfere and stir things up, like he straightens but does not disrupt. So many times we try to straighten and fix something and it disrupts the flow of everything. Back to what Wayne Dyer is saying here. This verse invites you to let yourself focus on the unchanging. That is, back to the line in the verse that says, thus the master is content to serve as an example. This verse invites you to let yourself focus on the unchanging Tao. Like most humans, Wayne continues, you probably want your surroundings to be permanent, steady, reliable, secure, and predictable. However, your reality unequivocally insists that you take into account the opposite and unpredictable that are present in every experience you have. After all, even the landscape that surrounds you is far from orderly. Mountain ranges go up and then down into valleys, and trees tower over shrubs, and cloud formations are ominously black at times and fluffy white at others. In every perfectly sunny day, there's a storm hiding, and in every rainstorm lies a drought waiting its turn. Now, this is a great life lesson for those of us who are always pushing and striving and trying to complete a million different things and have a never-ending task list. That could be for anybody, but people who are trying to do some kind of entrepreneurial pursuit, where you're like, oh, I have to do it. You're always stressing about the 50,000 things that you wish you could do at once. But, ladies and gentlemen, the great lesson in life and in nature, the great lesson that you can take from nature, not from me, not from Lao-tzu or Tao Te Ching or whatever philosophy exists, just simply from nature, says that in every perfectly sunny day, there's a storm hiding. So I think of the storm as the intensity, the activity, the pushing, the striving. I think of the sunny day as the relaxing and the rest and the taking a step back and taking it easy. And so in order for there to be balance in nature, ladies and gentlemen, in every rainstorm lies a drought waiting its turn. And so not even nature can sustain a forced action. So if you find yourself stressed out and having negative life experience or low life quality, you might want to look at your balance of resting time and times of action and how much you're forcing the action and not allowing the time of rest and just contemplation and self. There's a lot of time that we deny ourselves like introspection or looking at ourselves, thinking deeply of ourselves. I don't know, that's a different topic, ladies and gentlemen, but hopefully you get where I'm going with that. Now, in every rainstorm lies a drought waiting its turn. Up and down and the unexpected are the norm of nature. Hills and dales are the way of the 10,000 things. Change your view of the peaks and the valleys, of all of life, to an attitude that allows you to discover what's hidden in both of those experiences. Change your view of the good and bad fortune, of the peaks and valleys, of all of life, to an attitude that allows you to discover what's hidden and what is connected, I'll add, and the necessity and balance in both of these experiences. Wayne continues, begin to see wholeness, connectedness, or oneness, rather than good or bad, or this or that, or negative and positive fortune and experiences. See opposites as parts of oneness, or the negative and the positive as one part of a pole, of a polarity that creates reality, ladies and gentlemen. But you can look at these things as one connected by a magnetic field. You can think about it like a battery, a magnet, all of these examples that we have in real life. Now, begin to see wholeness rather than good or bad fortune. See opposites as parts of oneness rather than disrupting surprises. Because that's so often the label we just put on these things that are part of the whole experience. Like, oh, this is just a terrible accident, should have never happened, or a disrupting event, lock the keys in the car, like all of these things. But we never know the whole picture unless we are able, which we're unable in this lifetime, unless you're one of those people that's real deep into, out of body and mystical kind of stuff. But to put it simply, in this lifetime, we're unable to zoom out and see the entire picture of time. And if our lives was just a tiny little blip, to see the bigger picture, because then these little things that we describe as good or bad fortune become so much less relevant and so much less disturbing, or what we call disrupting surprises in our lives. Wayne continues, in a world of a pure Taoist unity, or of pure force, there is no good or bad luck. It's indivisible. What you're calling bad fortune has good just waiting to emerge because it's the other half. Lao-tzu's advice for applying the 58th verse of the Tao Te Ching to today's world would probably include something of the following. Now, this is Wayne trying to take this philosophy, this wisdom here from 2,500 years ago, from translations, and try to apply it to today and our modern lives. He says, number one, see wholeness in place of good or bad fortune. When anyone is in the midst of an experience you believe is fortunate, such as a blissful relationship, financial success, excellent health, a great job with new promotion, or children excelling in school, know that all is subject to change. Accumulated wealth has poverty hidden inside of it. Popularity has non-recognition camouflaged in it too. And of course, the same is true during the periods that are generally thought of as unfortunate. Your life itself is the perfect place to personalize your ability to live untroubled by good or bad fortune. For you have the opportunity at every stage to see wholeness, to see oneness, to see the polarity and the necessity for both. An age-old mark. So it's like, so rather than calling youth an aspect of good fortune and old age a mark of bad fortune, know that the youth you were is part of the very same wholeness that is also your old age. This is deep, ladies and gentlemen. See, these are the kind of philosophies I think are very important. It's like those kind of sentences. It's like, so rather than calling youth an aspect of, oh, that's just good fortune, you're lucky to be young, son. You better, or whatever it is, you better enjoy it. And then to have the also correlating philosophy or the connected pole of that idea would be the opposite for old age. So, if we switched it around, oh, you're lucky to be so old because being young's not that good. See how we always create these opposites, ladies and gentlemen, in the world of the 10,000 things. But so rather than calling youth an aspect of good fortune or old age a mark of bad fortune, know that the youth you were or that you are is part of the wholeness of your old age. So it's all one experience. And for us to judge it as not one experience would be a silly human mistake, not seeing the big picture and wanting to be neurotically frustrated and upset with life because nothing ever goes our way. But ladies and gentlemen, there's another way. That's why this is Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. And you can't just change your life by trying to go out and just change it. And this is talked about in many paradoxical ways in these verses. Like the more forcing and striving you do, the less allowing and arriving you do. And so, before you go out and change your life, you begin with changing the way you think about life. You begin with your thoughts, with your inside, ladies and gentlemen, and then you work outwards. So, what does this mean? It's like life, has many levels of change, and we all know that. There's many stages that we go through. And so Wayne continues here that the elderly individual you may become is part of the wholeness of your development through those levels of change that are your physical experience or existence. Life has death concealed within it, and the opposite is also true. So know your own heart, which was the introspection that I was talking about, or that, self-reflection time, the time for contemplation and self-awareness. Know your own heart, ladies and gentlemen, and let your conduct be consistent with the Tao by not imposing your will. Be pointed, straight, and illuminating without piercing, disrupting, or dazzling. Number two here about how we can apply the wisdom and the knowledge of this 58th verse of the Tao Te Ching. What Wayne Dyer thinks that Lao-tzu would probably say to the world of today that we find ourselves in, ladies and gentlemen. When bad luck feels so troublesome that you can't get unstuck, see good fortune leaning on it. That's a powerful one. When bad luck feels so troublesome that you can't get unstuck, so you're stuck in this bad luck rut, feel good fortune and leaning on it. What does he mean here? What are you talking about, Wayne? Telling me to feel good about bad luck? Huh, Chase? This is nuts. So what do we mean here, ladies and gentlemen? Well, I would say that there's a lesson in everything. There is no failure. And that every failure is an opportunity for us to learn a new way, even bad luck. Like you don't take a golf club, put the ball on the tee and barely tap the corner of the ball, mostly miss, and the ball dribbles off the tee and goes 1 inch. You don't say, oh, I'm the worst golfer. I'll never be bad at this, and nothing's ever going to change for me. You say, all right, that wasn't a high quality shot there. Let's try again. With an understanding of what it was or what it could be that we can maybe try to do to create a different result. Once again, this begins with the mind. And if your mind is stuck, then the way to get your mind unstuck is begin with the body. In other words, breathing techniques, meditation, smells, sounds, wonderful tea. It's like there are ways to trick the biochemical process of your mind into allowing new, new states, which allow new thoughts, which then can allow for this idea of changing our thoughts and changing our life. So when you feel overpoweringly discouraged, this is what Wayne says about how bad fortune can actually be something that we can lean on and see as good fortune. When you feel overpoweringly discouraged during a trip through the valley of despair, quote unquote, it can feel as if that's all there is. I feel so sorry for many of us that are stuck in these areas of life because it's a necessary part and cycle of life to go through. Remember, there is these balances. Within every rainstorm, there is a drought in which wherever there is a drought, there are many rainstorms coming. And those are extremes, but on every clear day, there's a nice afternoon shower. And so, you know what I mean, ladies and gentlemen, there is balance. So when we're having terrible times in life, know that it is a necessary part of the experience to get to where we want to go, ladies and gentlemen. But when we're feeling stuck, and we feel that that is all there is, if you're unable to see a circumstance or a situation as part of a larger picture, remind yourself that good fortune is leaning on this bad one. Just as morning follows the darkest night, with wholeness as a backdrop, so with this idea of polarity and the necessity for each pole on the magnet to create the magnetic field and, nature and the reality we find ourselves in, there has to be both sides and they work together. So being too focused on one side, we can feel stuck. We have to remember with this wholeness concept or philosophy or this dual polarity of oneness, so the confusing oneness of duality, we have to begin to rely on our knowledge of day following night at these times. Keep in mind that when you've reached the valley floor, the valley of the shadow of death, as some described it in certain texts, the only direction that you can go is upward. So when you've reached the bottom of the valley, you can't go any further down. Now, it's hard to know when you're at the very bottom. So many will say instead, of the only way it can go is up, which is true. But when you're in, hell or whatever you want to describe it as, when you're in the really tough times, just keep going. You don't want to set up camp there, ladies and gentlemen. Not a good idea. So that's why I'm so fascinated with this kind of wisdom, is because, what's being described here, struggling in life is, well, the main struggle in life, ladies and gentlemen. And so I'm like, how is there a way that we could possibly go through our life living untroubled by good or bad fortune? The science of lucky people and spirituality and mystical things, ladies and gentlemen, psychology. And there is a way that we can go through the things that we are supposed to suffer from without really suffering at all. But that's a very mystical statement. And so I don't think that any of us can really quite get there without an entire lifetime of practice of, the wisdom of the ages, ladies and gentlemen. So, like I tell my friend, you'd have to be like a monk that goes to temple for your whole life and be separated from society and only focus on these kind of things. And, it's it's of a high level of practice, ladies and gentlemen. But so keep in mind that when you've reached the valley floor, the only direction you can go is upward. Wayne continues, things definitely will get better. Your luck must change. Scarcity has to turn into abundance. This is because good fortune is invisibly there in all moments of despair. And you want to learn to live untroubled by them both. See, we're not so often troubled by good fortune. But it's important what he said there, that we want to learn to be untroubled by them both. Because some of us have so much good fortune, probably not too many of us, but there are those in high positions of business or leadership or whatever it be who have a ton of fortune or good fortune, and they're often scared of the possibility of bad fortune. And so we must learn, ladies and gentlemen, not only to live untroubled by negative things and bad fortune, but also untroubled from good fortune. This goes back to one of the keys of a self-actualizing individual, which is you must become independent of the good or bad opinion of other people, not just independent of the bad opinion, but the good opinion as well. So you don't need affirmations to make you feel good. And you don't need, you're not affected by people telling you you're not good either. You're just on purpose. And so, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of each of these verses, wonderful essays from Dr. Wayne Dyer and Lao-tzu and the ramblings of myself, which I hope you get value from. If you had, consider subscribing. If you've already subscribed, leave me a comment, ladies and gentlemen. I love to hear from you. It's so fun to see the little things that you each say and, see who it is that's actually watching, because there isn't a list on my side that shows me who watched these videos. It just says how many ever people did. And I'm like, I wonder who did. And so it'd be lovely to hear from you, ladies and gentlemen. But at the end of each of these verses, which is why you should expand the description below the video and click the link to get this book for yourself to put it on your shelf, is that Wayne Dyer gives you at the end of each of these chapters a little section here called Do the Tao Now, a way that we can take this wisdom up in the clouds kind of stuff and bring it down to earth, where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, ladies and gentlemen. And Wayne Dyer says, do the Tao now. How do we practically apply the wisdom of the 58th verse into our lives today? Wayne says here, spend a day noticing what aspects of life fall into the categories of fortunate or unfortunate. This is an ultimate practice. I think that we should try to do at least for a few minutes every day. If you meditate for 1 minute a day, I mean, a lot of people think, oh, I can't meditate. I don't have the time. Well, let's take like 30 seconds here. Let out a good sigh. I mean, that's all it takes to start with, ladies and gentlemen. And so, see, even just that, you can like feel it. It changes something, changes the chemical output that your mind's doing. It changes the way your body feels, and it gives you a moment to disrupt the normal thinking pattern, the normal flow of thoughts. I'm sure as I did that, it disrupted the constant train of thoughts that was probably going while you're watching this video. So using that 1 minute or 30 seconds in your day, which I'm telling you is invaluably great, spend that time noticing what aspects of your life fall into categories of good and bad without tearing. It's like, oh yeah, that I thought was bad and that I thought was good. And isn't it funny how they fell into these categories? That's odd. Like unattached from it. And then list them, Wayne says, under their titles at the end of the day. And then explore each of them at some time when you won't be interrupted. Allow yourself to either feel each one physically in your body or see it as an image that presents itself to you without trying to change it in any way. See, this is the key. You're like, I'm not trying to change it, or I'm not getting upset by it, or what. I'm just experiencing it. And so Wayne continues, not trying to change it in any way. Allow yourself to observe the subject with your eyes closed, just as if there were a kaleidoscope or life itself. Watch it and permit it to flow through you, ladies and gentlemen, the way the clouds drift in the sky, the way that night turns into day, the way that it rains and then the rain evaporates, and how confusion comes and goes when you're living untroubled by good or bad fortune. Boom, ladies and gentlemen, that's a boom to knowledge. That's a boom to wisdom. A beautiful ending there. Just as if it were a kaleidoscope, watch life itself and permit it to flow through you, the good and the bad, the way the clouds drift in the sky and the way that night turns into day and the way that rain evaporates, and how confusion comes and goes when we're living untroubled by good or bad fortune. Boom, ladies and gentlemen, that is an ultimate lesson, ultimate life lesson. I thought much more exciting than living without authoritarianism, but that was a verse powerful of its own right. And so I'm so interested to see where we go in the future, ladies and gentlemen. The next week's lesson is titled Living by Thrift and Moderation. That one could be a giant lesson for some of us, or some of our own significant others. That's hilarious, ladies and gentlemen. We got some great ones. Living in the treasure house of the Tao. That's the 62nd verse. I'm wondering what that'll be. Living without difficulties. You know, couldn't we all use that? Living by being here now, in the moment. Staying simple, simple-hearted. Emulating the sea. Living by the three treasures, ladies and gentlemen, and living by cooperating. There's so much good stuff here, so much knowledge and wisdom that can come out of such a short amount of time and such few words. But thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I love and appreciate all of you, especially those of you that spend time here with me and Dr. Wayne Dyer and Lao-tzu and all the wonderful authors and poets that were in the Wisdom of the Ages series, as well as Timothy Freke and Peter Gandy and Hermes Trismegistus in our studies of the lost wisdom of the pharaohs and the Hermetica, which we do tomorrow on Wednesdays, ladies and gentlemen. But once again, I love and appreciate all of you. Be sure to expand the description below the video. I have links to the book as well as my landscape paintings that you can get for yourself, and a link to C60 Purple Power, the ultimate antioxidant, ladies and gentlemen. I've been taking it for a number of years now, and it's something that you want to give and gift yourself the gift of health, ladies and gentlemen. And also be sure to subscribe, not describe. You can describe what you thought of the video in the comments section below. All right, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. And I'll see you tomorrow with some more of the wisdom, the lost wisdom of the pharaohs.